Hello Transformers fans, Veelio here, and today we are doing another toy review, and today we're looking at none other than Combiner Wars Rodimus Prime / Hot Rod, a figure that actually means a lot to me because it is the very first figure I bought way back in probably 2018 now, or whatever it was. But it was the very first figure I bought that kind of restarted my love for collecting Transformers, and God knows that has become a true addiction, and this is what started it all. So I wanted to talk about it because my opinions have changed somewhat on it. When I first got the figure, I absolutely loved it, and now there's a few more things I'd like to say about it. So without further ado, let's crack into it and see what I think. And what do you think about it? Please let me know in the comments below. I'll be very, very interested to hear. But without further ado, let's go. So where else to start but with this face sculpt, and wowee, he is a grumpy old bugger. This is very clearly a aged, experienced Rodimus Prime as opposed to the young, naive Hot Rod that we once saw. But to be fair, it's a nice head sculpt, it's got a lot of nice detailing on it. Maybe not my favourite design in the world, but I can't fault it for what it is in regards to the cheeks, the jaws, the structured chin. I am a fan of the way it is done, and in fact, to be fair to it, all of the sculpting and all of the detailing on this figure is really, really nice. I think the hands look really, really nice with each finger and thumb individually sculpted. I really like the flame chest. In fact, I really like this block of a chest in general. And the legs are complete all the way through with some nice colouring as well. I like the way the orange goes into the yellow, into the black as one component. And I like the way that leads up into the top as well, even as far as the shoulders, which are also legs, as we'll see later. So the colouring overall is very nice, it's very vibrant, it pops very, very well, and all the sculpting is really, really nice, but the structure of the figure is leaving a lot to be desired, especially when you turn it any kind of way 90 degrees, because that my oh my, that has got to be one of the worst backpacks I have ever seen in a Transformers figure. Not only is it a backpack of seismic proportions, which is so heavy, as you can see, that the legs can't even fully support the figure, but it is a completely hollowed out back as well. It's not even a back that is just a bunch of kibble put together like you usually see. It is just a completely hollow back. If you could completely remove this, it would be so much cleaner and we wouldn't have the constant falling backwards like this. These knees cannot support that backpack at all, and you have to stand him up in a way that looks like his kneecaps have been battered in by like Negan from The Walking Dead just to get him to stand up properly. So that right there is probably the most glaring thing about this figure that I think anyone and their mother would say, but it has to be said. When I first got this figure, I was naive. I loved it. It was my first Transformers figure in a long, long time, and I was so happy to have one of my favourite characters in toy form. I thought it was amazing. But as a lot of money has been spent since then on some very, very, very good figures, looking back at this now from a different point of view, that is just unacceptable, isn't it? It's crazy. Although I do have to say, the stickers are quite nice. But on the topic of kibble and any kind of parts that aren't really leaving a good taste in my mouth, these little arm flaps here, which do fold over for the transformation, just kind of fold there. And because of the size of this figure, and he is a tall, tall boy, by the way, these parts end up being really big, thick parts that are just there, not really tucked away nicely, but just put there. And another kind of thing about this whole arm is that it is technically parts forming. You do take off this arm as part of the transformation, but we will get there later. But due to the fact that this is a different component, it is a different shade of red. As we can see, there's a slightly darker red and doesn't actually peg in all too well either. But the different shades of red there can be a little bit confusing. It slightly makes up for it by the fact it's the same colour as the waist here, which is the maroon colour as well, but it is a little bit jarring, that kind of it's not very seamless, that transition there, which does leave me wanting a little bit more from the figure. And at the time of this figure coming out, you know, at the time of me getting it, I was very impressed. But since then, we've had such an array of Rodimus figures that have just blown this completely out of the park, that looking back now, and this is why I wanted to do a review all the way in today's day and age, it just does not hold up anymore. And for the price that this thing goes for these days, there's such better options out there. The figure does come with a couple of accessories, including this gun here, a very large gun, might I say, which can split into two smaller pistols, or blasters, should I say, which I think are very cool. I do prefer it to be in the complete mode, bigger, because it suits his proportions as a robot more. Although I do have to say, it's not my favourite blaster in the world, but you know what? It does the job, and there's nothing more you can really say about that. There is also an accessory you can find inside of Rodimus, which is the Matrix of Leadership, which you can find by just untabbing this front piece here and lifting it up, which does reveal quite a lot of detailing of the other figure inside, which we'll get to later. But you do see the Matrix of Leadership here. It's actually kind of in his stomach more than anything, as you can kind of see. It's not in his chest per se, it's in his stomach. And here it is. It's not my favourite Matrix of Leadership. The bright yellow doesn't really work for me. I do prefer the normal grey look, but the actual crystallised metallic bit in the middle was very cool. And once again, at the time of getting this, I was just thrilled to have a toy that had a Matrix in it. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I was basically a 4-year-old child who just got absolutely obsessed with the gimmicks of a figure. But no, it is fine. It's not my favourite, but it does the job. And unfortunately, it looks like he's died without it. So let's put that back in there and bring him back to life. But yeah, you did get a glimpse there of the gimmick of this figure, and you can see it a bit more if you just lower the arms here. You can see these arms are not very well hidden, but it is a figure that can become a smaller figure, which would be Hot Rod. So this was a little gimmick they did as part of the Combiner Wars line. They did also do it with Optimus Prime. There was an Optimus Prime toy that had a mini Orion Pax as his inside bit. So it's interesting to compare the two, because I actually think that the Hot Rod is better than the Rodimus Prime as a figure overall. But before we get into that, let's talk about the posability and articulation of this Rodimus Prime, whose knees are really starting to grate me. And just something I noticed there, if you lift it up, you can see the whole Matrix. It's not hidden at all. And if you look down, there's just a huge gap there, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, posability. He has got a swivel at the head. His arms can bend at the biceps, and it is a pretty good shoulder articulation due to the fact that it is on legs. But that does mean that you can get the full rotation here as well, which is very cool, if not a little bit clashing. The legs can go out decently far, but it is stopped by these bits at the back here. They got a bend at the knee, which can be improved if you lift up the waist. It can kick back not very far at all, solely due to this humongous backpack. But there is room for a pretty good bend at the knee here, with an ankle pivot that is very good as well, to be fair. So overall, for the size of it, it articulates itself very well. It's got a couple of good accessories. It just seems to want to fit too much into one. I get that it's hard, especially because things have come on leaps and bounds since this point in time. But at this point, you know, having two figures in one wasn't very well seen. It was quite a revolutionary thing, but I think if they did this now again, they could do it a lot better. But there is honestly so much to like about this figure still. There's just too much going on, I think. There's too much clutter. There's too much of a mesh. It doesn't flow nicely enough. And there's a lot of sacrifice, especially in this front piece where you can literally see the smaller arms and the Matrix inside. But I've actually managed to hide there with the waist being there. But if I untuck it, as you can see, and it doesn't actually tab in, by the way, that just sits. There's no tab to like clonk that in any nicer. Even though it looks like there would be there, there's nothing here to tab it into. It just sits, which is fine if you're looking at it face on, but any kind of pose a bit more further this way. To be fair, I don't know what pose you're going for here. Maybe the dead Rodimus pose, but you see it all. But nonetheless, let's move on to the first bit of transformation which we can do, which we will do by lifting up this front piece again. And this here is the connector, and it can be quite tight, but the good thing about this figure is that it's very sturdy. You can give it a right old break apart, and there it goes. And just as I was saying it's sturdy, I mean it's sturdy in every way except for this piece here, which slides off like no end. So all you got to do is just get it back into place there and clip it in. But that will come on and off more times than you could ever imagine. So I guess you could argue that the whole thing here is parts forming, but the one bit in particular that definitely is the arms, which you can take off by really going for it. There we go. So like I say, the figure is very sturdy, but you do have to really pull at certain parts to get them into place. But here, this mangled mess is going to become Hot Rod. So let's move Rodimus Prime out the way for 1 second. And it looks like Rodimus Prime has been in a terrible accident, but do not fear, we are going to turn him into Hot Rod, which we can do by, first of all, lowering the head into here, which gets rid of that. We can turn this back around and unfolding the spoiler to give the Rodimus spoiler. The legs will come down pretty naturally, as you would imagine. It all just kind of clicks into place, but we do want to turn it around at the shins, like so. The feet can be found by unclipping the shins, and they will just pull out like that. Do the same on the other side. The arms are connected at the moment to the top of the car, but you've got to just pull them apart, and this bit can be very tricky, but pull them down like that. Do the same on the other side. There we go. And currently he's headless. All you got to do is lift forward the real chest, pull out this, spin it around, clip it down, and back in it goes. And there you have Hot Rod. And I've got to say, as far as Hot Rods go, it's not bad at all. I mean, it's nothing compared to Studio Series Rodimus Prime, Studio Series Hot Rod at all. It's nothing compared to the Kingdom one. But as far as it goes, we'll get him standing up there. It's not bad. I don't really like the black in the legs, and, you know, it looks a little bit like he's wearing trousers. But you put one of the smaller guns in his hand, which is a very tight fit, and it looks pretty cool. It's not bad at all. The one thing that is getting it, once again, is this back. He has got one hell of a skirt there, which turns into, obviously, the car. But there was no way for them to do a better job than this, allegedly. This can come untabbed quite often as well. There's a tiny little hole to get it into, but once you do get it in, it should stay. I'm unable to do this, however. But once again, there is really good detailing on this figure. I mean, look at that. That's really, really nice. It's got a nice, sleek look to it. The face sculpt of Hot Rod is really nice. I mean, look, you can really tell the difference there between the youthful Hot Rod with the more curved head from the, like, just like out of the G1 cartoon, compared to the one that is now in here, the big head. You can kind of see it there. The big head, which is a lot more older, dishevelled, grovelled. He's seen things. He's been through the war. This is the more youthful Hot Rod, who, as you can see, has had a little bit of chipping on the paint here from all the transformations. And speaking of transformations, we will look at his one later, because I think the thing is with both of these modes, they got better alt modes than robot modes. And it's really, really rare for me to say that, but it's true. One slight issue I do have with the Hot Rod figure is that this wheel is really, really loose, which I'm worried will be an issue later on. I'm assuming if it does come off, it will just pop back on, but I can't say that I'm not a little bit worried. But overall, this figure is just a mini Rodimus Prime that we saw earlier. It's all the proportions just taken down a little bit. The gun really is stiff in that hand, which is a bit of a worry. But in terms of accessories, he can hold either one. And he poses pretty well. His head is on a swivel, as you would imagine. His shoulders can't go the whole way round as they're blocked by the spoiler, but you get decently good articulation there with a bend at the bicep as well. It's a shame that the hands or arm don't come out from this block. They are like solidified into this as one part of an arm, but it's okay. The bicep swivel is not too bad at all. The legs can go up and even further if you once again move the collar forward. It doesn't go that much further though, to be fair, and the back, same as the Rodimus Prime, can barely go back at all due to the backpacks on both of them. This one does not have any ankle pivot at all, but it can go up and down that much, and there's also a swivel at the kneecap. But it's a shame that there is no ankle pivot on this one as well. It seems like they are pretty similar ankles in a way, but they were able to get obviously more of a pivot in this one compared to this. There's just no way for it to happen on this one, unfortunately. But we'll move on to the transformation now, which I do think is quite a fun transformation, quite an easy transformation. It's a lot easier of a transformation than the main Rodimus Prime, but that kind of plays a part in it as well. You have to transform this guy to get the full product. So we'll start off with that. And just before we do the transformation, I do want to say that it is quite an easy transformation to follow along to, but there are some issues with it, which we will touch on when we get there. But overall, you do need to transform this into its own thing before you can get the finished product. There is a lot of hassle that goes into that part, but like I say, we'll get there when we get there. For now, let's do the transformation. And here you've got Hot Rod in his alternate mode. And to be honest with you, as far as Hot Rods go, this is really, really good. I mean, this is, you know, what Hot Rod looks like. There's a little bit of hollowness around the edges, but I mean, it really, really is nice. The underneath is just Hot Rod lying down, as you can imagine. It's what most cars of this size and proportion are, but you look at it from the way it's meant to be, it's a really nice Cybertronian looking car. The spoiler looks great. The wheels work very, very well. Fun factor 10. So very, very cool stuff there. There is no weapon storage on this version, but that's not an issue at all. But this is what you would need to get the full finished product of Rodimus Prime. And you can kind of get a gist for how that's going to happen with this tab here. What we'll do is we'll put a Hot Rod here for now, looking really cool. I've got to say, like, 5 out of 5 for that. It's sleek. I really, really like the Cybertronian look. What I'm not too looking forward to is transforming this next part, which we start off with this, you know, quite awful looking corpse, to be fair. But without further ado, let's get into the final part of the transformation. And here you have the beginning of the Rodimus Prime alt mode. Nothing about this is seamless. I mean, all of it is just hard work. Getting these in is so much hassle and they just do not stay in properly. This bit at the back is always coming undone. The feet are always untabbing. And unless you really squeeze it to a point that feels almost dangerous, you very rarely get this flat. And you know what? We haven't even got to the worst of it yet. That being said, I think it looks really cool. I really do like Rodimus Prime's alt mode. You can see this, what it is, a little bit less in this one. You can very much make out the arms there, which is a shame, and the legs. But that does get hidden by the final touch, which you do with this bit here. Getting your Hot Rod figure and attaching it in here. Now, as you can already see, this is a lot easier said than done. Honestly, that's not a bad effort on my half. It's probably one of the better ones I've ever had with it. But as you can see, these parts have already started to come undone a little bit more. And one adjustment that you can make to make it a little bit easier, which, although to be fair, I actually never do find to be easier, is to reattach these here on either side of Hot Rod. And that will then allow you to connect him better. But I'll be very surprised if it does work. So the point that they're trying to make here is getting this to come around into there. And this little tab here should attach to a tiny tab on the back there. But getting that in is so much easier said than done. You can tab it in here fine, but then trying to get it into this bit here, it just all pops open again. But I'm having better luck with it today than I usually do. So maybe I'm actually just one big hypocrite. But I managed to get 2 out of 3. Let's try for the trifecta. Oh, we're struggling. Oh, and it's all gone wrong. Well, there we go. After a lot of willy-nillying, I've got it in as best as I can. It's not really plugged in there, as you can see. But you know what? It actually looks good. I prefer the way this looks as a modern G1 representation of Rodimus Prime compared to any of the other things that we've got recently. And I certainly prefer it to its robot mode. Once again, the only thing is there's so much maroon in this part compared to how vibrant and red it is here. It does seem like a little bit of a clash. But you know what? It looks good. It's a very sizable figure. Which is always a good thing, and it rolls very well, which is a big part of anything, I would say. The flames look great, the fists look not as great. I really wish there was just something you could do to cover up that part of it, but overall, not bad at all. The alt mode definitely sells me on this figure more, and the alt mode is how I'm going to be displaying it. However, I have to say, the transformation definitely could have been more easier to get it into the alt mode in the first place, but I've seen worse. I've definitely seen worse. Maybe not from Hasbro, or maybe not. Who am I kidding? But I've definitely seen worse out there. It just can be a little bit finicky at times, and you know, it's not maybe worth it for the amount of effort and money that it costs as well. But as far as things go, it's not bad. It's always going to have a special place in my heart as the very first Transformer I got that restarted my addiction. But it's not up to me. Let's see what Sea Spray thinks of it. Alrighty, Sea Spray, how you doing? Good to see you again. And what do you think of the figure, eh? A 3 out of 5 from Sea Spray. Well, do you know what, Sea Spray? Not a bad shout at all. It's got a lot of redeeming qualities, but it's just missing that finished article that things like the Studio Series do give it. And whilst I do love that vehicle mode, I have to say the IDW robot design of Hot Rod will always be my favourite. And when you compare it to a figure like this, who is a third-party Transformer, non-licensed, who I've just picked up and still need to add the stickers to, but you look at this, you know, beautiful face sculpt, the sleek, slender design. That is what I would imagine a Rodimus Prime to look like. And you know what? Side by side, they don't look too bad at all. If this guy could somehow turn into that, now that'd be pretty cool. But overall, I've got to say, not a bad figure at all. Not my favourite Rodimus Prime design, but that's just my opinion. The actual toy itself is solid. If you're thinking about getting it up, if you're a big fan of that design, it's solid. It's worth it. And the gimmick is pretty decent as well, having 2 in 1. If I was going to go for a Hot Rod, I'd go for Studio Series, or if I had a bit more money, I'd be going for one like this. But if you're looking for a Rodimus Prime Hot Rod little hybrid, that probably is the best thing on the market for now anyway. So thanks very much for watching, guys. I really hope you have enjoyed this review. If you want to see me review any more Transformers, let me know in the comments below, including figures like this, and I'll be more than happy to review them. But once again, I really hope you have enjoyed, and let me know what you think of this figure in the comments below. Do you agree with Sea Spray's 3 out of 5 rating? If not, I'll have to let him know what you think, and he'll come back with some probably very aggressive comments, knowing Sea Spray gets quite upset when people disagree with him. But nonetheless, thanks very much once again, guys, for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. Please do consider leaving a like and subscribing as well, and that will really help my channel to grow. And thank you guys once again. I will see you all in the very next video. Goodbye.